This is a two-part series about pen making. In part one, we are going to go over the individual tools that you will need and the supplies to successfully make a pen. So the good news is that for pen making, you don't need much of a lathe. This here is a MIDI lathe made by Delta. And I used to have a smaller lathe, a mini lathe, that was made by Recon, and it lasted me for several years until I eventually outgrew it and I upgraded to this Delta lathe. Now what I like about this is that I can change the speed here via a VFD frequency drive immediately. It also has still 3 gears if I need more torque, but I rarely change that. For the pen making, this is a very nice lathe. Also, a neat feature is that I can reverse the direction immediately up here with the switch, so that if I turn something in wood and I'm going to the final stages of sanding, I can reverse it and then also sand the fibers that have been laid down. That makes it a nice feature there. The swing here is also a tiny bit more than you find on the mini lathe. If you don't have a lathe and consider purchasing one, then I have 2 tips for you. Number 1 is buy a lathe that has a VFD so that you can change the RPM on the fly. And number 2 is you don't need a big monster. It is nice to have a large machine with a big hefty mass for large bowls, but if you're starting out, then a small MIDI lathe I think is the right way to go. You can set it on top of your workbench like I have it here, and most likely for your first projects it's fine and it's going to last you several years before you outgrow it. If you start out with wood turning, then you can make a decision right up front, and that is if you want to utilize the traditional wood tools for turning. These are the gouges, and then in that case your best new friend is right next to me, the grinder. Now this grinder here is an 8-inch model and it has an upgraded wheel on one side to get a little bit nicer edge on the tool, but I can tell you that there is definitely a learning curve on A, how to use these on the lathe, and B, how to sharpen them. So in my wood turning series here, in this 2-part series, we're not going to get into the details of this. We are going to use the carbide tip tools. So here I have laid out some of the supplies that I use for pen making. And I like to route you through the individual ones, what works good, what doesn't work so well. And let's start out with the Easy Wood Tools carbide tipped turning tool. I absolutely love this. Now there are other manufacturers that make it. If you consider buying one, don't get the real long one. You don't need that for pen making on a smaller lathe. The small one will be just fine. This is the CI2, has an M in the end. And what I also like, I'm from Kentucky, so this is made in Lexington, Kentucky. And one other recommendation I have is you can get this with a square, and it has really a 90-degree edge. Don't buy it for pen making. Get the one that has a slight radius on it. It will not catch if you go side to side. And then also, if you get this and you plan on using it on man-made material like acrylics and so on, then I recommend that you get the negative scraping or the negative scraping tool insert. It is very, very nice for turning epoxies and acrylics. Okay, so the pen blank needs to be prepared. So let's talk a little bit about the different materials that we have for pen blanks. And here, all of these are different types of acrylics that you see here. That would be all of these. And I have turned probably each one of those. This is a little bit different here. This is carbon fiber, but it already has a tube insert placed into it for you. And what I don't like so good about it is that I have this in several years. I've never used it because I don't like the slimline pen. And it turned yellow. The casting turned yellow over time. These materials here are different. So this is wood. This is called king wood. This is called true stone, and when you lift it, you will immediately know that it's not a regular acrylic because it is much heavier. And this has some green and blue, so I believe this is lapis and probably azurit. This one here has wood in it, and it's really, really beautiful, I think. And it's called an amalgam because it's made of two different materials. And so it's a stabilized wood and stained or colored epoxy or acrylic, I think. And really like this one. Here is something interesting. This is a corn on the cob. I saw that in a wood store, a finished pen with that, and it looked like a fish scale. Here I have one. This is blue. So this corn on the cob is the leftover cob after you eat all of the corn off of it, and then it's dyed and stabilized with cactus juice. And this is the pen that I made of a blue one, and I think they look fantastic. So that's the prepared blank then. Now, when you prepare the blank, I like to go over a couple of things, and that is that you first are going to drill a hole through the center and put a brass tube in. Now, when you do that and everything is set and done, then you need to square up the ends of that, and you need to get the material all the way down to the tube section, and this is a so-called barrel trimmer. And I bought one and then I bought another one, and I wish right off the get-go I would have bought this one because the barrel itself right here, the trimmer, the cutting portion of it, so this is the guide that goes into the tube, and then this is the cutting portion of it, has different types of diameters. So for different tubes you can exchange them out, and I think that's a better investment instead of buying those individually. So you got the pen blank prepared. For drilling through in the center in the very beginning, I just put the blank in the vise and literally eyeballed that and drilled through. You can also just use a clamp, hold it in the clamp, so the square itself, hold it in the clamp, and then use your drill press to drill from the top. There's also a fancy vise that if you make a lot of these are so-called self-centering vices, and you can see both of the jaws move when I move that forward and backward. Now, it's a bit of a luxury. I don't think you really have to have that. This section here is spring-loaded, and then you can put them in very simple and easy without moving the center, of course. So the idea is that you have multiple of the pans, and it's always centered on your drill press, and it doesn't matter of the size of the pen blank, you hit always the center. So that's a luxury. You don't have to have that to get started. Drilling through that is not all that difficult. So then you need the pen itself. Let me show you some of the pens that I have here. This is a pen called Polaris Twist Pen Kit. That's how the pen itself looks like. We're going to go in series 2 into the details of this. And this is the pen in gold with a chola cactus. This has a CA finish on it, and this is crushed lapis in the center of it. This one here is a different style pen, and its S is actually bone. This is an acrylic. What I like about this is the end pieces here belong to the rhodium family, and this is a very, very hard finish. It is impossible nearly to scratch, and it will last for many, many years. It's also always more expensive, but I love the tone of this. Very nice. Now this pen, I left the clip off of it, and I call that the desk pen because it will never clip onto a shirt. This one here, the same thing. The top cap is a little different. again in acrylic right here in gold. This is a wood pen that is made from king wood. The finish is a CA finish, and we're going to talk about that in a sec, what you need for that to make that finish. So these three are so-called slimline pens. Actually, this is a pencil, a click pencil, and I don't like them. Don't ask me why. I just don't like to make these. One thing I want to point out to you is that this is a friction polish on these. It is not a CA finish, and they are a little bit, almost feel like a little bit tacky on the outside. And the friction polish, I think it's beeswax and shellac, I believe. So you can repolish these, but who is going to do that? And on wood and porous materials, I really recommend a CA finish. I think it's much superior for a pen than a Turner's friction polish. Okay, so since we are talking about finishing, let's quickly go into how to finish a pen. And I have different materials right here. This is the friction polish, and albeit it's nice for some other turnings, it's not good for a pen because a pen gets handled too much, so I cannot recommend that. This is something for the car. This is McGuire Scratch X. Actually, it works really well on acrylics. This is hot ultra gloss plastic polish, and that works really nice as a final stage. And here I use the super glue and some instant set, so activator. Now, if you use it on porous material, I always like to use a thin CA for the first coat, and then spray that with activator, and then come back and do about 8 coats of medium CA. Now, I happen to have here Gorilla Glue, but that's not always what I use. And why I like the Gorilla Glue is because the cap of the bottle, it always works. You never have to poke in there or see that it's stopped up or anything, and see that you get material out. It always, I like the bottle a lot, is what I'm saying. So to arrive actually at the acrylic that you can use a plastic polish, and then also to later on polish up the CA finish that you have, you can use these sanding pads. These have been quite used. Actually, they last for a long time, and you will need to wet sand this with water. Now, for the very final step, what you can do is you can use these polishing pads with or wheels with a compound. So these just go into your headstock, tailstock goes on there, and then this is a pen mandrel. So they line up on a pen mandrel with those spacers, and it gives you the, let's say, the very finest finish in the very end, if that's what you're going for. There's one other item that I like to cover today in this video, and that is the pen blank itself. During machining, you need to hold that. And when you hold that, you need a bushing. So every pen is going to have a specific bushing. And the bushing is giving you the correct diameter in the front and the end of the pen. So the bushing will fit, this section, the step of the bushing will fit into that tube. And the whole thing gets then traditionally placed onto a pen mandrel like this. So you're going to have the pen mandrel and a bushing, and then the tube. So there's going to be maybe a spacer sleeve right here, the bushing, the tube, another bushing, a spacer sleeve, and then the nut. And I don't like that. This is relatively long. I started out this way, and I found that the run out of this piece was not good, so it would like do this. And then later on, when the nip goes on, so the front piece of the pen, just this way, it would always have an edge right here, and I absolutely hated that. So I thought that I've shortened this up, the run out gonna be better. And I then bought this one right here. So you can you don't need the spacer sleeves anymore. You can directly put that on. So bushing goes on, then this piece goes on, another bushing, and then you have either the nut on the end or this piece right here that tightens everything up. I don't use that one anymore either. Now I like to show you something that I do use today still, and that's my favorite, and that is that your lathe comes most likely with a turning or rotating, and I wish know what they are called. It's a tip. Okay, this is usually a 60-degree, and this one here, it's a center, so it's a turning center. Now this is going into the drive side, so this one doesn't turn, it stands still, and since this goes in the headstock, then this will drive actually the pin blank. We're going to squeeze this in between these two centers, so it's called turning between centers, and that works really, really well. Now, one of the challenges is if the piece is not round yet, that you can catch it because there's nothing really here on the end face to drive it. You know, it's not that much friction. It provides for me the best run out, so the best fit between, I'll show you, the best fit between the blank and the nip of the pin. So there is a thread right here, and you're going to press that in, and then this screws on, and you want to run your finger over this and feel nothing. And when that is achieved, then I think it's a good quality pen. Okay, now for the assembly, I just said that this is pressed in, this piece right here, and the way you would do that is you could use the lathe itself. So the tailstock could be advanced forward to press it in. You could also use the drill press and use the headstock and the drill press and press it in. That will work. And you can also use a clamp. So just clamp it and press it in. Or if you do a lot of these, I have what is called a pen press right here. Comes with different inserts. So the piece just goes in between right here, what you want to press in, and then you advance this forward and you press the pen together. Now that's really simple and easy, and I'm not quite sure what they cost actually, but at one point of time we do a lot of pens, and this is a pretty good investment. Now I don't care for this one particularly because you have to have these spacers. There is one that has a pin, a raster pin right here in the back, and this pin engages in different lengths, so that would be a better one than this one right here. Okay, I think we've got it. Now that was a lot of information, some of it probably really dry, but if you are interested in making a pen, then I hope this helped you out. In the next video, we are going to make an acrylic pen and going to use all of the supplies that I showed you today in this series. Hope to catch you next time.